Welcome back, everyone. It's the Erickson Brothers. Let's jump right in. So, topic I want to jump into today is I want to go over what I've been doing a lot of recently, which is using this software that came out for my business on it's kind of like the gold standard right now for 401k and IUL comparisons. And Matt, I'm going to have you be the example because I want to tell you about what the software is, and I think it spark some good conversation. So, that being said, let's jump
Okay,
in.
and what's an IUL?
Okay, IUL, it's cash value life insurance. So, it is a alternative to the 401k, and it grows tax-free and risk-free, meaning you pull everything out without paying taxes and you never lose any money.
You never lose any money.
Correct. You don't
How?
lose any money. Well, so it grows indexed. So there's floors and caps on the account, right? So there's a floor of 0%, meaning downside protection, like worst you could ever do is a 0% return that year. But there's a 15% cap. And like that's the caveat. So like let's say market goes up 15, your account goes up 15, market goes up 20%, you stop at 15. And like that's how the company makes their money is on the spread above 15%.
Okay.
Does that make
So,
sense?
that resets every year.
Correct. It's annual. Yep.
Okay, so if I put in $100 and then in year two, say the stock market goes up 20% in year one, in year two, in the beginning of year two, I've got 115, and let's say the stock market goes down 5%. At the end of year two, I still have 115.
Correct.
And is that on a calendar basis or what?
It's it's yeah, calendar year. So January 1st to December 31st.
January 1st, it resets.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. And it tracks whatever index you pick. So, you can pick the S&P 500, you can pick a Chase JP Morgan index, you can pick the Fidelity high par, you can pick whatever you want. Or not whatever you want, but like there's a selection of different ones.
Okay.
Right. So first I want to pull this up because this is super fascinating. At least I find it really fascinating. What we're looking at here is we're looking at somebody here. I'll hide inputs. Total contributions for the year. We're just assuming somebody is putting in $12,000 every single year into their 401k, right? So we're just looking at a 401k right now and like how it would play out for most people, right? One thing I really like about this, obviously with 401ks, everything is 100% tax deferred, meaning you're deferring taxes to retirement. So let's go ahead and track our tax deferral, which again, in the first year would be about $2,400. We
Mhm.
can track fees. The average fee of the 401k would be about $319 that year. And then we can track account balance. All right. Are you following everything so far?
Yeah, I'm seeing it because
Okay.
account balance is post return.
Yes, it's post taxes, post return, and post or I guess this would be post taxes is the death benefit would be the 9,900. Um, anyway, so we can see this is just for a 25-year-old. I call this 25-year-old Matt.
Hmm.
So let's just stop at 35, 10 years into this. Let's take a look at it. All right. So 10 years in, right? This client would have put in 132,000, assuming again, $1,000 a month into the 401k. They would have deferred $33,000 in taxes. They would have paid $24,000 in fees, and they would have $167,000 in the account. All right.
And what are the fees based off of?
The fees are based off of average fees of the 401k. We can actually show inputs here. And as of right now, we're showing a 2.5% fee. And Forbes came out with articles talking about how average fees are anywhere between 2% to 4% for 401ks that have managed mutual funds.
Okay, what about passive mutual funds?
I don't know. We could pull up the article and actually break down what the actual fees would look like if that's something that we want to pull up. But I say we talk about that at the end if the fees are actually specifically a big thing. But
Well, yeah, if it's $30,000 in year.
yeah, for the sake of this, you know what? I want to keep this up. I want to pull up another tab here.
'Cause that seems like a lot.
Yeah, I want to pull this up here. Let me
Because not even hedge funds are
yeah, I
like
know.
hedge funds are two
Dude,
and 20. Or
these are
let's say
crazy.
the average hedge fund is 2 and 20. Yeah.
They are absolutely crazy. So explain to everyone that doesn't know what 2 and 20, explain to everyone what 2 and 20 means.
So if I'm an accredited investor, I can invest my money into a hedge fund. We'll call it, like for example, Carlyle, Citadel, Millennium. I don't know those exact structures, but in the past, the typical management fee is 2%. So you put in $100, management fees going to be $2 of that 100, and then they take 20% of the return. So they think hedge funds, you put your money in because they think that they can outpace stock market or traditional passive investing. So let's say hedge fund makes 15% on your 100. They clip 2% of that 115, and then they take 20% of that of that 15, so that they take 3. So your return would be 110. And not exactly that, because I don't know if it's the 2% first or the 20% first, but it's around that.
Okay, cool. That's good to know. I actually pulled this up. I was actually found the article. All right, so it says, do you know how much you're paying in fees? And this is from Forbes. It says the real cost of owning mutual funds. So they assume the real cost of owning mutual funds is actually higher than I thought, anywhere between 3.42% and 5%, because there's what's called an expense ratio, there's transaction costs, there's a cash drag, and then there's advisory fees. Right. And we can actually view the article here, but it's pretty fascinating because a lot of the fees are hidden and most people don't even know what the fees are in 401ks. So actually understanding how all of this breaks down is a big deal, because like you mentioned, $30,000 over 10 years, that can be a lot, right? But let's just, for the sake of this, let's chop off that 0.5%. Let's just call it 2%. We'll say it's not actively managed and we'll just say it's regular. All right.
Okay.
And the fees go down. Let's see here. We were at 35. Let's see what the fees drop to. So at 2%, enter. At 2.5%, fees were 33,000, 2%.
20K.
Yeah. All right, cool. Anyway, so we'll hide inputs just so we can focus on a couple of these things. Let's go all the way up until retirement. All right, 64 years old. All right, this client, again, $1,000 a month, all the way up until 64. They would have put in 480,000. They're deferring $263,000 in taxes, $402,000 in fees, and their account balance at age 64 would come out to 1.3 million. All right, 1.3 million. So let's do retirement, and now let's show the first year of retirement. So now let's track some different things. Let's track annual gross income. This client would be pulling out 150,000 from their 401k to be able to get to 120,000, right? Because they're paying $30,000 in taxes, right? And then we can track taxes paid. And we'll just look at the total account balance down here. Again, yeah, I think that's good. Right? Because the biggest thing is, you have to pull significantly more out in order to actually get that $120,000 a year. Right? And by the way, that's coming out to 10 grand a month after tax. So, they're doing pretty well. But as we go along, let's go to, age 73. All right, still pulling out 120,000. They would have pulled out of over $1 million out of this account so far, but the account balance would be 242,000. Right, so it's bleeding right now. By 74, They have $95,000 left in their 401k. And at 75, the client would be out of money.
Okay.
Right. And it's scary, right? It's scary because it's, the majority of people right now, they have to go back to work. Like, I don't know if everyone knows that, right? But once somebody retires, on average, that person's going to retire and then have to go back to work just based on, the cost of living right now and how most people are basing their whole retirement plan off their 401k. Right.
Yeah,
So,
I think it's a good rule. It's just interesting to think about. You are saving money in 2024 to be spending it in, let's say, 2075. Like, the dollar is going to be worth a lot less than.
yeah,
So it's it's yeah, you gotta.
you got
I
to
mean,
factor it in.
yeah.
Yeah, you got to factor it in. And, I talk to people for a living, and it's unfortunate. I talk to people about these kind of conversations for a living. It's unfortunate the amount of people that have never sat down with a financial professional. Their financial advice is the HR lady that they got at work that like said, sign here for the 401k. And that's all the financial planning they've ever done. And that's just the reality of where most people are at. Right. And showing them stuff like this freaking blows their mind. All right, so let's show the IUL now. A couple things I want to point out, right? Because we have to pay taxes up front. If you see this, 2,400 in taxes up front, all right, we're putting in less, right? Because every single contribution into the IUL is after tax dollars, all right?
So
Cumulative tax.
what we're assuming a tax rate of 20%. And is that what we're taking the 401k money out at too?
So we're showing the
Yes.
effective tax rate working and in retirement, like we're showing taxes don't even go up. Right. And like, you think taxes are going to go down or you think they're probably going to go up. Right. They're probably going to go up. But, just for the sake of it, we'll assume taxes stay the same.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. So, all right, 401k is deferring 2,500. IUL would have paid up the 2,400 up off the front. All right. Biggest thing, we can track contributions here. Biggest thing I want to point out, look at fees. All right. Look at fees in the first year. Crazy. Right. 401k is paying $255 in fees. Look at the IUL. $1,400 in fees the first year. Whoa. If you look online, people slam the IUL. They're like, man, you're losing money because you're paying so much in fees. Why? Is because look at the death benefit, right? There's permanent life insurance that's associated. So if you were to pass away, this permanent life insurance is going to pay out. And there's a cost to that, right? There's a cost to that. So you're paying $1,400 in fees in the first year, right? And it's important to track fees, at least in my opinion. I think it's important to track fees. Let's track account balance as well. All right, so let's just go up to 35 here. All right, so we can see at 35, significantly more put into the 401k. All right. Now at 35, check out the fees of the 401k go up to 19,000, fees of the IUL 17,000. Right? Because what's one thing that's fascinating is IUL fees are fixed, regardless of how much money you have. All right, 401ks, it's an assets under management fee, meaning the more money you have in the account, the higher the fees are. Right. So the longer you play it out, the more you're going to see this too, the more the 401k fees just run away. All right. But I mean, again, account balance is not even close. 172 compared to 125. Let's
Right,
go.
because it's still the 401k is still pre-tax.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. That's a good point too. It's still pre-tax. At age 50, this client, again, 133 in fees. Account balance comes out to 589, where IUL has 538. And again, that's all after taxes. Let's go 1 year before retirement, age 64 is what the clients, they put in 480,000 to the 401k, 384 into the IUL, 402 in fees here. They still have to pay $293,000 in taxes. 1.3 going into retirement compared to 1.5 million. Boom. Let's retire. Let's go to the first year of retirement. Let's track some different numbers here. Just now we're looking at retirement income. So just like with the 401k, right? We have to pay the $30,000 in taxes every year, that annual tax. With the IUL, we're taking out less money from the account. All right, we're taking out less money from the account because we don't have to pay taxes. All right, and then cumulative taxes paid. Let's see what else is a good one. We don't have to look at fees anymore. We'll go cumulative net income. All right, so 2 years into this, right, the net income would be the same, right? Because we're drawing the same amount from each account. All right, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go all the way up until 1 year beforehand, right? We can see, dude, look at the account balance, 2.4 million in the IUL compared to 95,000. All right, we go up to retirement, 401k is out of money, and then, all right, IUL, we're still taking $120,000 out. Right. And one thing I want to point out about this account balance is it says 2.5 million, right? And how the IUL works is when you take money out of it, you're taking loans. All right, you're taking loans from the cash value. Have you ever heard of that concept before of taking loans out?
Yeah.
Right. So it says there's 2.5 million in there, which there's 2.5 million in cash, but there's a lot of loans that the client would have taken out. Right. So the amount that's compounding in the market is actually significantly more than, like if it was just a regular account. All right. And bless you, by the way.
Okay. I'm
Make
trying
sure.
to I'm trying to sneeze.
um,
So
anyway,
what rate are you taking? But I'm assuming you need to pay back this loan.
you don't, because what's crazy is basically the life insurance would cover whatever loans you have because the loan is against a death benefit. And the companies are cool with it because they're like, man, we have to pay this guy out $500,000 anyway. We'll just take it out of the death benefit whenever he passes away, and we'll just give less money to the kids. All right. And the
Okay,
loan,
so
which is crazy, the loan is a 0.9% interest rate because you're taking a loan from your own account, and it's an account that's backed by an asset that never loses money. It's crazy. Right? It's crazy to think about. I mean, if you ever Google what the Rockefellers have done to, stay billionaires for 8 generations, cash value life insurance, and specifically in IULs, check this out. You can continue to pull $120,000 out of this account. Right? It keeps going, by the way, all the way up until 90 years old. All the way up until 90.
mhm.
That's nuts. And then somebody, right? So it's like, question at 75, Matt, just question for you. At 75, do you want to be planning a family vacation or do you want to be sending in job applications? Which one would you rather do?
Vacation.
Vacation, right? 100%. Me too. Right? But then somebody might be like, "Oh, but Jeff, my 401k matches me and we haven't even factored that in." Okay, cool. Let's do it. Let's factor in a 401k match. Let's go show inputs. Annual employer match. Based on Matt, give me some numbers. Let's say if somebody is putting in $1,000, based on what you know about the 401k, what would you say like a reasonable company match would be, like every year?
6%.
6%. All right, so they put in 12,000. Well, so it's 6% of income, but you know what for the
Yep.
right, so it's 6% of like annual, right? But off the 12,000, I would say my experience would be like if an employee puts in 12,000, best case scenario, the company would be matching about $6,000. All right. They'd be putting 6,000 of their own money in there. Right. And obviously, it depends on somebody's salary and it depends on the company, but I think, 6% would be decent. Look at this, look at how long the retirement income goes when we change this, because it's going to change. Let's just see how much it changes. So it goes from 75 to 83, right?
You're at $6,000.
So we're showing $6,000 a year that the company's now putting in, right? That the
Okay.
company's matching, right? And it's great. It bought you another 7 years of retirement, but now you're out of money at 83, right? And so instead of 75, you're out of money at 83, right? And as somebody might be like, whoa, but I'm going to be in a lower tax bracket when I'm retired. All right, by the way, the federal tax bracket right now is at 22%. All right, and if we look at taxes over time, that is crazy too. If we ever look at taxes over time, right, the highest tax bracket we've ever seen is in the 50s, right, where the marginal tax rate was in the 90%, right? 90% of your income was being taxed in the 50s, right? And it's now the lowest it's ever been. It's kind of going up and down and up and down. And now, right, we're in a down. So most people are like, it's probably just going up. All right, it's probably just going up. All right. So anyway, let's say best case scenario, taxes are, let's say for whatever reason, they're going to be lower. Let's say they're 15%. Bought you another 2 years. That's crazy.
Yeah, because you're only taking out a difference of 5%.
Yeah. Right. So I don't know. I find this interesting. Just about every single, and by the way, this is the gold standard right now for 401k and IUL comparisons. And everyone that I'm talking to recently that is overfunding their 401k, and they're like, man, I don't want to wait until I'm 59 to retire. I don't want to have to be subject to market loss, especially with what we've seen in the market. Like they don't want market loss, they don't want to pay taxes. And that's like the biggest thing I've seen. And somebody told me yesterday, it was actually funny. Somebody told me yesterday, they're like, Jeff, but I don't even know if I believe in life insurance. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, you just have to believe in life insurance a little bit. And by the way, I was like, it's not a religion. Like you don't have to believe in it. I was like, you just have to like life insurance a little bit more than you like the IRS. They thought that was hilarious. I was like, you just have to like it a little bit more than you like paying taxes. And they're like, okay, that makes sense. All right. They're like, that makes sense. So anyway, what are your thoughts? I mean, I just kind of showed you what I do for a living. What are your thoughts?
Um,
Pretty cool.
Thoughts are very interesting. So, question. So you take with the IUL, you take a loan out when you draw on the money, and then when you die, that it impacts the benefit, the tax, the death benefit.
Hmm.
Okay, and so say you, in our example, right? What did we have? We had like a million ish.
Of coverage right off the bat. Or what? What are we looking at? Like we can see, because if we go to the very end when there's no more money left in the account, we can see $183,000 would still pay out to the family.
And that's on any, that's no conditions, all death.
Yeah, I mean it's like if
What does the three say at the bottom?
um where
Death benefit three, the note.
uh based on assumptions derived from the client and is hypothetical, it's intended to reflect actual results nor guarantee future results. One thing I will show you, because like people might be like, how'd you even get these numbers? Right? If we go to this, like, by the way, we have graphs. Like, it's fascinating tracking the graphs. Like, you can look at the IUL compared to the 401k. There's IUL details, all of this fun stuff. We can look at how fees actually work, actual versus, average return. But there's an FDIC illustration that the state approves that I actually drew up. It's actually pretty fascinating. And it's like approved by the FDIC and it has all of the numbers for, what we were showing, right? $800 a month going in instead of 1,000 into the 401k, and then pulling out $120,000 a year. And we can see, the death benefit, cash value, and this is all approved, it's a actual illustration approved by the FDIC, which is pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So anyway, I love this software because it's helping me make a lot of money right now. And it's helping my clients, in my opinion, make a decision that's going to significantly help their retirement. Right. So any other feedback, or was that your main question?
No, that makes sense.
All right, cool. Cool. Well, I just wanted to show it because I've loved it, and like, I play around with it. Like I mentioned, like you're looking at financial, cash flow statements, and you're looking at income statements and whatnot. And I look at 401ks, and I look at IULs, and I look at how to structure them so you can pull the most amount of money out as possible. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
something to consider. All right, something to consider.
Yeah, fair enough. I think I've been thinking recently, it's interesting the you look at the wealthiest people, and it's a no-brainer, but it's interesting. It's like the wealthiest people didn't save the most amount of money. Like they didn't save the highest percentage of their money when they were working. They just made the most amount of money.
Mm,
It's like it's a good reminder to not penny pinch and think about saving like X percent versus Y percent. Like the most important thing into creating wealth is actually creating wealth, and making sure that top line is bigger, whether that's whatever that is you do. Um, like the saving aspect of it when you're young and putting money into retirement accounts, like that's all great, and definitely important. But the main driver is going to be uh, like how much you're actually putting, not this percentage.
yeah.
It's just a yeah. Um,
Well,
so
Alex Ramosi talks about that, and he's like, man, if I invested what I put into like my personal development and what he invested into the courses and into mentorship and into the coaching he got, if he put that into the S&P 500, right, he would have gotten like a 10% return. And like he calculated, he like put in like $10,000 into personal development and coaching and like learning different skills. And he's like, that 10,000 would be like 20,000 now if I were to just grew it in the market.
yeah.
And he's like, the number one thing you can invest in is to increasing your earning capacity, whether that's learning new skills, whether that's, growing your network, whether that's like just your associations you're around, whatever it is. So and we've covered the S&P 500 before. But I just second that so much because, your earning capability is the number one thing that's going to have the biggest influence.
Hmm. So what have you been doing to increase your earning capability recently?
Well, I went to Arizona, which is actually pretty cool. Went 2 weeks ago out to Arizona, and one of the top sales trainers in the world right now, his name's Andy Elliott. He just moved his whole entire business under Global Financial Impact, which is the broker dealer that I'm affiliated with. And it was cool because, it was fun meeting him. Dude's running a 9-figure company right now. It's a sales company that does, life insurance and retirement accounts. And if you look him up again, Andy Elliott, like 3 million followers on Instagram, like he's huge. And he just moved everything under GFI. So it's pretty exciting. And, one of the reasons why I brought that up is just being around people that are, 9-figure entrepreneurs isn't something I've had much experience with. And, I was not in like a small group conversation with him, but I was in a bigger group conversation with him. And it was just cool being around people that are, making that kind of money and moving that kind of business. So I invested in going out there and being a part of it and that kind of thing.
Very good. And what skills do you feel like you gained, or was it more
Mm.
network or skills?
Yeah, well, I think belief too. Like just the belief that you can be big, or like the belief in yourself, or like the confidence in like where you're going. I think that can have an ROI almost, because instead of switching your path or switching your focus, realizing that you're on the right path, I think that can have, you know, a positive influence. And it wasn't necessarily like a new skill set that I specifically learned that weekend, or it wasn't like, you know, I'm now going to be able to call them up and, have them do a podcast or whatever. It's not like that, but just the belief in the opportunity, I think can have a positive ROI.
That's good.
Yeah. What would
It,
you say? I'm gonna flip the question. What would you say is anything you're doing right now? Because I know you've traveled all,
Mhm.
feel like you're going coast to coast right now, traveling with your bank and going international and a bunch. fun stuff you've done, but what would you say is one thing that you've done to increase your earning capacity?
Earning capacity, I think, yeah. One, reading and just taking in, asking questions, taking in as much information as possible. So using the resources available, uh, anything from the Wall Street Journal to Bloomberg articles to just uh, um, books that I've been reading. So just taking in as much um, content as possible when it comes to the world, and forming a view. There was a video of Jamie Dimon. Um, he was interviewed by somebody, and he went through his morning routine of all the publications he reads, and he reads Wall Street Journal front to back, New York Times front to back, Financial Times front to back, Economist every single week, New York Post or New Yorker, one of the two, every single day or every single week. Um, he reads the business section of uh, one of the other um, newspapers. But so anyway, he's taking in so much content, and it doesn't matter what he reads to him. It's just he needs to know what people are talking about.
Mm.
Uh, so it's not necessarily he's not necessarily reading about rates, or he's not necessarily reading about entrepreneurship or business or different like recent M&A acquisitions. He's just reading legitimately about everything he can find, because he wants to be informed, um, and just taking in as much information as possible. And so that's made it interesting for me to just be diligent with reading things that I'm interested in and not reading things that I feel like I have to. Um, so that's been interesting, and just there's so many studies out there about how reading makes you smarter.
Yeah.
And I think you're a better conversationalist, you're more interesting, you have better focus. All these things just come from reading. Um,
You can
I
connect
think,
easier with others.
yeah, you become more relatable. Um, and imagine if you read everything in the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, and Economist every single day, how much info you're taking and how you could probably add value to every single conversation you have. Pretty cool. Um,
Yeah.
like I read an article a few days ago about how uh, people there's these food carts and restaurants in Mexico that are intentionally making their food less spicy because tourists come from the United States and other places in Europe and Canada and complain about how spicy the food is in Mexico. They complain about how spicy the authentic Mexican food is. So uh, so this person who was interviewing the restaurant, or this food cart, was intentionally making their authentic Mexican food less authentic, because they knew that white people can't handle it. Um, so just interesting stuff like that. Yeah, I think I've been taking in a lot of podcasts, just uh, listening to business podcasts. I listened to the All In podcast last weekend. It's
Who's
and
that with?
I don't know. It was the first time I'd ever listened to it, but it's it apparently it's like one of the most popular podcasts out there. And one of the things they were talking about is just news outlets and how biased they are. So they use the Google search platform as an example. Like if you look up Trump, what comes up, and if you look up Kamala, what comes up, and they found that uh, like whether you agree with it or not, when you search Trump on the internet, you're going to get articles of Kamala Harris, and when you search Kamala Harris on the internet, you're going to get articles of Kamala Harris. And they were talking about how one it's likely not intentionally biased, but you get a positive feedback loop, and most people taking in information and reading these things are the they click oftentimes more on Democratic leaning news sources, and they also found that the amount of publications for Democrat to Republican news news outlets is 30-1. So that's really
Democrat being 30, Republican being one.
yeah, just the amount of information out there with a specific leaning, um, which is also informing. Like you can't blame Google for taking all that information and showing the most popular. Like no, like of course the most popular is going to be left leaning because there's 30 times more information out there um, on it. So um, that was really interesting, and just I think there it kind of made me think about how there might be a possible need for right leaning publications out there. And I think I wouldn't consider our podcast political by any means, but I think that um, it's definitely it's a contrarian worldview when we talk about like a when we talk about Jesus and we talk about what he did and like our role as Christians.
Yeah.
Um, and I think just reflecting on that, I think it's very interesting, and um, like I don't know, it's encouraging for me to be contrarian in a world that um, will tell you that you can like you can be like you should follow your heart and follow your dreams, and like you're the god of your own life, and like none of that's true, and people are finding that like when they do follow their heart, like their heart misleads them, and when they do put themselves as god, like that might be okay for a little bit, but like the one true god is the thing that's like sustaining people, and people are looking every which way for something, and like anxiety is up, depression's up, like people have
Mm.
no idea where to turn, and they are truly looking for something, and and what the answer is like redirecting their life and orientation towards Jesus Christ, and I think that's helped me in a lot of things. um but I think going back to my larger point, there's just a need for like that information to be out there, and just say like, hey, you don't need to be anxious about tomorrow. Tomorrow will worry about itself. Like be present. Like it's very biblical. Like I don't know, the world will say like be your own guiding light, but like you make bad decisions. Like don't like I'm 25. If I were to follow my own understanding, like that's not good. Like
Yeah.
let's stop thinking that people have these like omniscient like moral compasses and uh the ability to see all and do what's needed in all situations. Like let's really drop that.
Yeah.
Um so back to what you were saying. So yeah, reading, listening to podcasts, and then just being engaged with people whenever I'm with them. Um I think it's just so important to be present and be with people when you're with them. Um, show that you care. Show that you're a friend, and like all that. And I think being engaged and being present, there's a lot to learn from that too.
Hmm.
So.
Yeah. Be where your feet are.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah. All right. Awesome. Um, let's jump into the next topic. Do you have anything in particular?
Yeah. So I've been reading this book called Buy Then Build, and it's about uh, acquisition entrepreneurs that are buying uh, very small businesses and then scaling them from that. Because the premise of the book so far is that starting something from scratch is uh, tends to fail, and a lot riskier than starting something that's already existed. existing, and they found this one, the author individual, and a lot of people that I've been listening to have found that there's a really good window that is less risky than starting your own business, but still small enough, in like these businesses are still small enough small enough in revenue that a formal private equity firm or institution just won't touch that, because it will never hit their return model.
But it still
But
has like upside potential for the new
right,
owner.
there's still businesses with growth that are stable, that cash flow, and one, private equity firms and potential institutions that would buy out a larger firm, they're not going to touch it because it makes $2 million a year, $5 million a year, like in revenue. Like that's just not going to do it. So this book has been talking about the just some of the processes involved and what you want to look for, um, in buying a business. So it, and not to say I'm in a financial position to buy a business at the moment, but um, it's just interesting to read about and learn about.
Yeah. Um, Cody Sanchez talks about that a lot. Dad at least introduced me to. I think he has sent you a couple stuff that she's done. And I haven't followed her that much, but like that's her thing. She
Yeah,
loves buying boring businesses.
right.
Like her like biggest business is like an ice maker. Like she has a bunch of like, like next to gas stations, like ice makers where you like fill up a bag or like you have a bag of ice or whatever. So it's like a really boring business, but it's like it's high profit, it's low cost, it's like something everyone needs, it's recession proof. And it's like, it's fascinating to think about business that way because I think some people are like, like I'm gonna be super creative and I'm gonna use all of these like emerging technologies and I'm gonna try to do like something that's cutting edge and it's like it's just them,
Uh-huh.
and I think finding something that has stood the test of time that's probably not going to go away, that's already established, it's probably going to be a little bit more profitable.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, I think the main difference between this guy and Cody Sanchez, like they definitely have a lot of overlap with buying small businesses and finding this pocket. Um, and Cody really emphasizes just the boring businesses, stable businesses like the laundromats and the things like that. And I think that this author talks about how you want to, or in his view, you should be looking for businesses with a little bit more growth potential, because a laundromat, you can't grow it. Like it's stable, it'll get you cash flow. But the only way to grow that is to buy another laundromat. Um, or like I think Cody has, you can put vending machines in your laundromat. But like all of a sudden, I think the point is you're not going to automatically have this easily scalable business model. So I've just been uh, thinking about, like, if I were to find a business, or um, what would I be looking for? Um, and I think a lot of the ideas I have are already taken. Um, so it's
They're all already taken, like they're all
like a
gone.
lot of them. Like I was thinking last night. Well, I was thinking last night. I was like, okay, people, because I read another article, how how within, I think since COVID, pets are becoming a lot more important in families' lives.
Yeah, because everyone's by themselves. Yeah.
Right. So people are spending uh, a lot more money on their pet than they used to. And so the article talked about that, and then it also talked about how pets are getting written into people's wills.
Hmm.
Not sure how that's possible. But anyway, the trend's there. So I'm like, okay, what would be a continuing trend? Like, I think in that a recession proof, in a recession, like you can't just give away your pet, right? Like, and oftentimes you're gonna have a pet longer than an economic cycle. So you want to have something like that's probably a good business. It's growing. People like their pets. They care about their pets. People have more money now. Like that's a big thing that is people are talking about in public equities and um, even like wealth management too. I'm sure in your business, like people just are doing better than they were 50 years ago, 10 years ago. Um,
More
have
disposable
more,
income for sure.
right. So they have more money to spend on things like dogs and hamsters. Um, so it's like, okay, what's a reoccurring business model with pets? And I was like, how about something, a company that automatically sends you a toy for your pet every few weeks, or sends you snacks for your pet every few weeks. And no matter what, you get new snacks and you get new toys. And that way your pet stays engaged with new toys and it's fun and you all that stuff already exists.
Yeah, Chewy is like a unicorn business. When they dropped, they're like so fast to hit that $1 billion market cap, just because they're like the first online subscription based pet delivery. And I don't have a pet, and like we've never had a dog or a cat or anything. But
Uh-huh.
Chewy came in. They're the first like online delivery subscription based thing that you can have for your pets. And they were like one of the fastest companies to hit $1 billion. Um, crazy, crazy how fast they moved.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, I probably should have known about Chewy. I didn't. I think maybe I did. I just didn't realize it was an online subscription model. Like I maybe in my head I thought it was more retail. Um, but
It's a good
yeah.
idea though. The pet market. It makes me think, kind of related, but not entirely. When Kayla and I were out in Colorado looking at wedding venues, one of the wedding venues was talking about how in the state of Colorado, all you need to get married is a witness. Like you can technically marry yourself, and you just need a witness. And people have had their dog as their witness. And in the state of Colorado, you can have your dog witness the marriage, and you can like marry yourself. Oh, like obviously you need a spouse, but like your spouse
Oh,
and
I
dog.
thought you were saying you could actually marry yourself. I'm like,
No, like
uh,
in terms of like, you could be the, I don't know,
what type of
the
tax benefit
adorned,
is
the
that?
ordained or whatever.
Hmm.
But I thought that was fascinating. It was like you, your wife or your husband, and then also a dog just to witness it. And I'm like, all right.
Okay,
The importance of
fair enough.
dogs is maybe scary, like weirdly high right now in America. I don't know. Maybe that's
No, what of dogs?
they're just the importance of them.
Oh, the
Seems
importance of
like,
dogs.
now we're spending more money on them. Now they're, keeping us sane, and
Mhm,
they're witnessing marriages and whatnot. So I don't know.
mhm, mhm.
Maybe I should get a dog.
Yeah, yeah. I worked on a deal that was for a pet food company. Um, but like if you get into that, I think if you were to go like the high, like if you were to go to like the snack route or the food like meal route, I think in down economies, people would actually trade out of those and stop buying snacks and stop buying like the high quality
Mm,
food for their pets. I think like I don't see that being as recession proof. But
I don't
like
I don't
sup-
know.
I don't know either. I don't have a dog.
Well, when you target, it's what's interesting about recessions is the businesses that are unaffected are the businesses that sell to wealthy people.
Yeah,
Like,
that's been a big thing too recently is that strong parts of the economy, like strong brands, like luxury brands, are doing really well, and you're seeing
mhm.
like these like value broad consumer brands are not.
Yeah, well, wealthy people are always going to have money. If you got money, you got money. Um,
Right. And what I learned a few years ago now when I was studying for all my series exams is that it's actually easier to have money and make money as you make more and have more. It doesn't get harder for you the more money you have. It gets easier for you.
Yeah, that's
Um,
great. I'm looking forward to that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm like, let me know when that happens.
Yeah, exactly. When it becomes easy to make money, like give me a call. I'll be ready.
Yeah, yeah. Um, so like I've that was a book I was reading and just trying to take in as much as I can. Um, so I would say another thing, um, we talked a lot about this guy Jonathan Plakuta, who's a pastor in Texas right now, and it just definitely says it how it is.
JP.
JP. Um, and one of the things on my mind that I've asked a few people recently, um, is there's a verse that, um, and I should know this. I definitely should, but it's um, like God turns to the a group and that gets to heaven, and he says, I never knew you, I never knew you, and they say, oh, we prophesied in your name, we did all these things,
Yeah.
blah blah blah, like, and God's like, no idea who you are. And the analysis from JP was that that is because that they the people who did that, like, they were doing that on their own volition and their own for their own gain. They're saying, I'm doing this, blah blah blah, like, look at me, I'm doing this. um when in reality it's by God's grace that he allows us, and it's all him, really. um and like it's just a reflection of like our only response to the cross and to Jesus is like just humility. And why do I get to be here? Like, why did you send your son? Like, why do I have this opportunity? Just complete humility. But we're human and we struggle and we sin. So his question was, that I've been thinking about, is like, what do you think your thing would be that would you would say is like your fake ticket um into heaven? What would you say you're something that you would say, oh, I'm doing this and therefore I deserve this? And it's just like, what are you putting your hope into,
Into
that
heaven.
you should be?
Yeah. Well, to answer that question, I learned at a young age, and I think our parents did a good job at this. Like I learned at a young age, like I can't do anything to get into heaven.
Yeah.
And I've had that belief for a while. Thanks to our parents, and probably a lot of that thanks to you. It's like I couldn't even do anything even if I wanted to. There's
Hmm.
nothing I could do. Like, so anyway, it's Jesus's death on the cross is gonna be the reason. Like if I die and I'm talking to God and he's like, why should I let you in? I'm like, it's because you sent your son to die for me. He
Hmm.
died on the cross and I believe in him. Um, so that would be my reason on why I think I'm in heaven. But also, I mean, I think faith without works is dead. And I think, like a fresh spring produces fresh water and a salt water spring produces salt water. So like if I know I'm saved and I know, I'm a Christian, and my actions should reflect that. So I think tithing is important because tithing is something that you do that, not in my opinion, not everyone should see. Everyone shouldn't see that you're tithing. That should be like an internal thing between you and God. So I think tithing is important. I think, you
Well, I
know,
think
I think praying is important.
just to stop you right there, I think it's not, the tithing in the Old Testament is known as 10%. Like, I don't think the 10% is not the important part. It's the fact that we are giving sacrificially, and
Yeah.
we are we and like whatever percent that is, like, could be more, could be less. People are different. There's always that story of the poor person who gave, the parable, the poor person who gave to God and they gave like a cent, and then the rich person, the king, who gave to God and gave like all these gold coins and trophies and stuff. And God looks at the poor person is like, she gave out of what she had much more than what the king gave out of what he had. So I think
Yeah.
that's important. And like tithing, in the formal Old Testament 10% is, I want to get away from that, but
Yeah.
like,
But
yeah,
I think you kind of know
where your
where I'm
money is,
starting
your heart
from.
will follow, right? So that's the important thing.
Yeah. But I think you kind of got what I was mentioning just in regards to, yeah. I mean, I don't have I don't have a belief, a false belief in the fact that I can do anything to, earn my way.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's good for you. I feel like I sometimes have insecurities of just saying like, oh, just because I do this or I do that, like, oh, I could be more specific, just like, just because I do give money or just because I do go to church, like I should, like, I think sometimes there's a part of me that says, oh, I deserve this, or if I'm, then like there will be some type of reward because I'm obedient, and like that's not the right way to think about it at all. And like it's I guess to condense it, it's like we don't have we don't get favor from obedience. We, or maybe we do. I don't know. No, we don't. Not in this world. Um, but just things like that. Like if I'm obedient, then I deserve this. But that's very prideful. And I think too that uh, it's definitely getting away from that and like praying about it, but something that I think about.
Yeah. Cool. Cool. Well, that's three. That's three. So, good chat. I'm glad we're back. I'm glad we're back. We've traveled to every single state in the continental US between my brother and I, and we're back. We're back. So hopefully you guys were able to, gain some stuff. Matt, close us out.
Uh, Man, what a life. Grateful for it. Um, Good to talk with you. Uh, yeah, life is
Yeah.
good, thankfully.
Yeah.
Glory
Do
to God
some
for that.
do something big with your life, Go change some people's life in the process. That's what I'm all about.
Trying, trying, trying.
All right, guys. Peace.